Hello, thank you for listening to my presentation. Today I'll be talking about evergreening, and specifically America's drug market, and how it makes medicine unaffordable for Americans. To start off, what is evergreening? Well, evergreening is a metaphor of sorts to the idea of trees staying green all throughout the year, no matter the season, even during winter and fall. This is to show that what companies want to do with evergreening is be able to maintain profits longer than they're supposed to be able to do. This often leads to abuse of the markets, with Americans paying the cost in higher drug prices. So, how do these companies actually carry out evergreening? Well, there's three major ways that companies do it. First, they can make minor changes to a medicine. They can slightly alter the formula, change its dosage, or do other little changes to the medication so that they can argue that it's new now, thus allowing for a new patent. Another way that they can get a new patent to extend the protection of the medication is to find a new use for the medication. So if a company has a heart medication and they somehow figure out that it also treats some rare autoimmune disease, they can now extend the lifetime of that patent protection. And the third way that companies do this is with patent thickets, where companies put in place dozens to hundreds of patents on the same medication, which makes it legally complex and difficult for any company to challenge these patents, let alone an individual. So, why is this practice bad? Well, if this patent stays in place longer, it means that no company is actually allowed to sell a generic version of the medication. This means that the name brand producer is able to completely control the market and set whatever prices they want. Because of this, when there's no competition, what we see is that drug prices increase. For example, aripiprazole generically costs $17.81 each month, while the name brand version costs almost 100 times that at $1,641.92. This goes to show that when there is no competition, companies can do whatever they want and charge people whatever price that they ask. Because at the end of the day, people need medicine to live, and they'll pay whatever price that's listed on the shelves to live longer. But these drug companies try to protect this. They say that evergreening actually protects incremental improvements in medication. That would be true if what we've seen in the past is that when these patents are tried in court, 73% of them fail, with almost half of them failing due to invalidity, meaning that the medication never had any improvement or purpose to even exist in the first place. What this shows is that the majority of patents are not because they make the medicine better, but just to extend the life and make more money. So let's play a little game. I want you to try to guess the price of the name brand version based on the generic version. So if the generic version of this cough and cold medication costs $4.49, what do you think the name brand version costs? It's the same number of tablets, 16, and the dosage is exactly the same. Well, it costs just about double the price at $8.99. We can do this for a lot of things. Let's look at bandages. This isn't even like a chemical medication. It's just the adhesive and the bandage itself. If the generic version costs $7.99, what do you think the name brand version is going to cost? Well, it ends up that the name brand costs almost double again at $13.99. So let's look at one more for good measure. What about acetaminophen? If the generic version of an acetaminophen medication costs $3.99, what do you think the name brand Tylenol is going to cost? Well, again, for the third time, it costs double the price at $7.99. This is all happening even though there's a generic on the shelves quite literally right beside it. Drug companies know that when there is a name brand, people are going to buy it whether or not there's actually a patentable increase or improvement in the effectiveness of the drug. And this process gets even worse when there isn't a generic version. I mean, imagine if they're able to charge double the price, even though there's generics, then imagine how much more these drug companies can make if there isn't even a generic available. It means that people have no alternative and have to buy the name brand.
The data in the graph depicts drug spending by year within the United States. The yellow data shows prices nominally, meaning the prices in the year that the drug was sold, while the green graph shows prices inflation adjusted, meaning that the value of the dollar is equalized to what it is today. As you can see in the graph, the drug spending within the United States has increased since 1960 to 2020, with sharp increases in 96 and the prices starting to level out a bit in 2005. This increase in prices year by year in drug spending in America makes it wholly unaffordable for Americans to be able to pay for medications that they need. The data in this graph depicts the difficulty in affording prescriptions for Americans. What it shows is that around 35.6% of Americans find some difficulty in being able to actually afford prescription medications, meaning that, on net, over 100 million Americans find it difficult to pay for prescriptions for medicines that they need for their health. This means that the cost of medicine is unaffordable for a lot of Americans.
So, what does this all mean for people? Well, I'd say that if a medication isn't able to be afforded properly, I would say that's a human rights abuse. This is because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to which the US is a signatory, explains that every person has a right to their health, and this includes from medical care. What this means is that if somebody isn't able to access medical care, that's a direct violation of their human rights. At the end of the day, there is nothing more important than protecting your health and being able to live. There should be no reason that money, that these green slips of paper, should be worth more than somebody's life itself. There should never be a person who's forced to make a decision on whether or not they should take medical care because it hurts them or their family in the long run. It should be a guarantee that everybody is allowed. But that can never happen when Evergreening allows companies to charge whatever they want. Because when companies can charge whatever they want, they're inevitably going to try to maximize their profits. And when they try to maximize how much they make, they take away more money from people who have to pay the cost of the grocery store. People should be able to access medical care. That's why evergreening is such a sinister practice, because it takes that accessibility away. So, thank you for listening to my presentation. In front of you is my sources that I used throughout the presentation, and I made the slideshow on Canva, which is also cited in the sources cited. Thank you for listening.